This is a really good diagram by the BBC. Describing or informing what to do if somebody becomes sick. So mum, she lives with her family. She becomes sick. So she is going to isolate for 7 days. So that's day 1 all the way through to day 7. And then on day 8, her isolation. If she is feeling better and her fever has settled down, she can come out of isolation, and she is then able to then just go back to those kind of normal rules of staying at home and only going out to shop once a day or going out to the chemist or whatever it is. Now, if there's somebody living with her, that other person, so everybody else in the family now has to isolate for 14 days. However, if the other person who is living there becomes sick, then actually they only need to isolate for 7 days, because what we now know, obviously, if they've shown the symptoms, after 7 days of showing symptoms, it's unlikely that you're now infectious towards others. So child number 1 here becomes unwell on day 3. So therefore, after day 9, i.e. 7 days of her isolation, but 9 days after the mother went into isolation, the isolation then ends. You then got child number 2, or any person number 2, that person who shows no symptoms at all. So that person has to remain in isolation for a total 14 days, because as we said, they could potentially at any point be infected with the virus and not showing symptoms. So if after 14 days have shown no symptoms, they can come out of isolation, and the clock then resets. And then finally, you may have another person, and actually all the way through up until day 13, day 14, they've not shown any symptoms. On day 13 or day 14, they become symptomatic. What happens is their day 7 of isolation then starts from that day. So even though they've been isolating since day 1, when mum became sick, they continue now until they finish their 7-day isolation. So potentially somebody could be in household isolation for 20 or 21 days in total. And this is where the complication is. So it's quite this is probably one of the better representations that I've come across trying to explain this in terms of the isolation requirements. Obviously, at the moment, even after isolation, we are pretty much isolated, but there are obviously things you can do that you wouldn't be allowed to do if you're isolating.